Hey, it's Rod Yates here. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Humans of Music, a Jaxsta podcast. Each episode, I talk to a music creator or industry professional about their life and career, the ups and downs of their journey, and the lessons they've learned. And my special guest today is My Morning Jacket frontman, Jim James. My Morning Jacket recently released their 9th studio album, also called My Morning Jacket. But for a while there, Jim didn't even know if there would be another My Morning Jacket record. Years of relentless touring had taken their toll, and the band took an extended break after touring in support of 2015's Waterfall. But in 2019, they got back together to play 4 shows, and they rediscovered that they actually really liked playing together. Just before the pandemic sent the world into lockdown, they got together at 64 Sound Studio in LA and started jamming and working on ideas. Eventually, those sessions became their new record, and Jim talks about its creation in this interview. He also talks about his upbringing in Louisville, his path into music, his experiences of playing with artists like Roger Waters, and much, much more. But we started by talking about My Morning Jacket's new self-titled album. Quite often when bands self-title an album, it's because, they see it as a landmark release or they're making a statement. Is that how you see this record, as a landmark release for the band?
Well, I don't know. Only time will prove if it's a landmark release or not. That's not up for me to decide. I mean, I've always loved the self-titled release, Mm-hmm. I love that, everybody has that option once in their career, to do that. And, for us, since it had been a while since we put out an album, and we really weren't sure if we were going to make another album, it just felt like such a blessing that we did get to make another album. And it had been a while. So we just thought it was a really great time to go ahead and use that option of the self-titled. It just felt like the perfect moment for it.
Yeah. Did that time away allow you to take a step back and recalibrate what you wanted the band to do and to sound like, and rethink what you wanted to achieve from an album?
Yeah, it was just more important to step back and just rethink about the kind of way we had built our world and the way we had pushed ourselves to do more than we probably should have done, and just really kind of pushed ourselves to the brink of exhaustion and burnout. Because as far as the music's concerned, I feel like it always kind of dictates where it wants to go, and we always just try to follow the spirit of the music. But as far as just like being in a band or being in a making records or whatever, it's like everything had just gotten to such a stressful point. I really had to step back for a while and just kind of disappear from it for a while, to then be able to see it clearly again and realize that really the only way we can keep going forward is if we do it on our own terms and just try to do it at a pace that we can enjoy, that doesn't drive us crazy, and then it can all be what it's supposed to be.
Right. And did that dictate the idea then of self-producing the album and just making it the 5 of you in 64 Sound in LA in that studio?
Well, yeah, we wanted, because when we got together, we didn't really even know if we were going to make a record or not. So we really wanted it to just be the 5 of us with, literally nobody else there. So it could just be kind of like a band practice. But we also wanted the capability to record. And I know how to run a recording studio, and Carl knows how to run a recording studio. And so basically we just, we have that knowledge, but, so we had the studio 64 Sound. They were really great, and they helped us set up and, figure out all their gear and stuff. And then once we were set up and running, we could just run the session ourselves. So, because we really wanted to have a really closed circle where it was just us, and we could be more vulnerable and be more, willing to make mistakes and just kind of be with each other and enjoy each other as friends, and just kind of have as low pressure of an environment as possible, and because we really kind of just started playing and talking and hanging out, and we weren't really sure if we were even going to make an album, but then it just started snowballing.
When was the last time it was just the 5 of you in the studio like that?
God, I mean, there would be times when it's just the 5 of us, like if we're practicing or rehearsing for tour, But as far as like making a record, I mean, really not since the first records, that we made.
Yeah.
Because we had our own studio for the first three records, but even on the third record, we had an engineer come in and help us, and we got some new gear and stuff. So it had been, I mean, since probably God, at least 15 years or something.
Wow. And it must, I mean, do you hear that in the record? Do you hear a freedom?
You know what? I do. It's like at the same time, I hesitate to say that it's necessarily a bad thing to have a producer or an engineer around, because we've also had lots of fun, and I feel like made a lot of really cool stuff with different producers or different people we've worked with. But it's interesting because we always did everything so handmade in the beginning, just because we didn't have any money and we didn't know anybody. And then once we had a couple records under our belt and got like an album budget or whatever, and we're able to work, in a quote unquote professional studio, or with an engineer or a producer or whatever. We also during those times, weren't fully didn't quite understand the technology of computers and recording and all that stuff. But since having over the years learned all that stuff, it's really freeing to kind of know. I love working in the studio, and I love knowing how the gear works, and I love that side of it just as much as I love the songwriting or the performing or whatever. So that part to me is also part of the fun. So yeah, this was kind of just that realization, because I'm kind of constantly making solo records by myself at home in the studio. I've got a home studio, but then I just kind of had the revelation where it's like, oh man, we just need to get the space to physically put my morning jacket in, and then we can just do it ourselves, because we know how to run the gear and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Is it true the riff for the song In Color came to you in a dream?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I had the song idea, and I intended the song to be like a minute long, or just kind of like a nursery rhyme almost, just a very really simple, kind of super super simple thing. But then I had this dream in which the riff came when we were in the studio, and I was like, oh man, like that riff has to become part of the thing. So then it kind of that riff ended up leading us into some of the improv sections that happened in the song, and then melded with the original kind of nursery rhyme aspect of it, and became what it was.
So you have the dream. Do you wake up in the middle of the night and quickly grab your voice memos and hum it in, or do you just hope that you remember it in the morning?
Exactly. No, I have to sing it. And sometimes I don't always make it. Because sometimes if I'm too tired, I'm just like, oh God, I can't do it. Or I've got like tons of voice memos where I can't even understand what I was saying because I'm so tired. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I'm like, hot. But yeah, I try as hard as I can to just get to the phone and just sing the thing in. Yeah.
Sure. It feels like a real album of hope. It definitely covers some of the perils of modern life when you think about a song like Regularly Scheduled Programming, which I guess rails against things like technology and social media overtaking our lives. But in the same song, you also sing of the beauty of nature. And there are other songs on the record like Love, 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 which is a very positive message about spreading love, and In Color, which is about celebrating our differences. Do you agree that it's a hopeful album? And did you want, if so, was that the idea after, in a post-pandemic world, to put something out into the world that was actually hopeful?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel like it's all of our jobs as humans, to just keep trying to be hopeful for each other, and keep trying to inspire each other to have that hope, because life can be so hard, and life can be it's so easy to get dark and to get lost and to feel hopeless, and I feel like that's what music does for me. My favorite music brings me back up when I'm down, or gives me hope when I have no more hope. So yeah, it's like I always want the music that we create to be genuine, to reflect the sadness or the sorrow that I may be feeling, but then also to show the other side of the coin, so it's like you're not trying to push away the darkness or push away the sadness, because that's there too. But also if you don't let the light in, then you become hopeless, so I feel like I'm trying to constantly like show those two sides of the coin,
Yeah.
because if you pretend like the darkness isn't there, that's not genuine either, or if you're just too dark, then that kind of sucks you down and way down further into this hopeless place. So yeah, I mean, I hope it makes people feel hopeful.
Yeah. Have you always had that ability to look for light in the dark?
God, I mean, I don't know, not always. I mean, sometimes I've felt really, really hopeless, and really, really, really dark. And, I mean, that's the wild thing about life is, none of us know what life has in store for us, so we can only try as best we can to ride the waves, and sometimes the wave nearly drowns us, or sometimes it does drown some of us, and then if you're lucky enough to not be taken away by the wave, I feel like it's like, it's like a sacred duty that I feel like we have just in regards to the gift of life. Just being given the gift of life is such a unbelievable gift that I feel like, we all have to keep kind of trying to find that hope each day, and trying to find it in just the smallest of ways, the simplest of ways. Like, what can you find in your day that was beautiful, or, just being grateful even for simple things that you don't realize until they're taken away, like just being able to walk and talk and being able to, just those simple things that, anybody can tell you that's like broken their leg and had to use crutches or whatever, that you really don't, you take for granted how easily you can walk until it's taken away, and I feel like I guess that's one thing. I've had some things taken away from me, so I know what it's like to have something taken away and then for it to come back and to realize like how much you took it for granted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of something that we should all be trying to do. But I mean, easier said than done sometimes.
Did you get some perspective around that? Obviously you've spoken at length about that time in 2008 when you fell off the stage. And I think you've even said that for a while there, you thought that may be it for you. That may be your life over. After an event like that, did that give you some of the perspective that you've just been speaking about then?
Oh God, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, that was, yeah. I mean, it's like one of those things where you are just trying to read the signals, read the things that are happening to you and go from there, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have things revealed to me that showed me that I could go on and help me find the strength in myself to go on and the strength to you trust in the universe and be grateful for the friends and the family and the love in my life that I've had that has kept me going. And it's because we're all of our lives are so different. We all have such different upbringings. We all have had our victories or our tragedies or whatever has shaped us. And yeah, God, it's like this. I just keep thinking of this notion of everybody's doing the best they can.
Right.
It's like with what they've been given. It's like I used to not believe that. I used to think people could do better, or I could do better or whatever, but I really, when I start thinking more about that, it's like everybody's doing the best they can. And it's like, not that we all can't be trying to become, more responsible, better citizens of the world in other ways. But I feel like, yeah, I don't know. We're all trying to deal with what life throws at us with the best we can up to that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing about that accident in 2008, when you said that you thought that might be it for you, did the idea of death frighten you?
No, it sounded like a release, honestly. I mean, because some things were taken away from me that I didn't know if I could live without, and at the time I didn't think those things would be coming back. So for me, it's like I just didn't seem like it was worth going on. But luckily that wasn't the case. Because I don't, I mean, I view death as a really, really natural part of the existence that we're here for. I don't really know or subscribe to any certain belief pattern or any kind of religious beliefs or whatever, but I do feel like death is something that should not be feared. I feel like hear people talk about making friends with your death, and knowing that your death is with you all the time, and could come at any minute, So I've tried to be friends with my death and know that my death will lead me somewhere else. It will lead me where I'm supposed to go. And a lot of this body and this realm, is it's so hard to understand in the grand scheme of things where it all fits in. But part of me really does believe that it's some sort of illusion, some sort of continuing part of an ongoing journey that the death is just a part of. Just like other things. But I feel like our culture has made death into this big thing to be afraid of, or thing to be. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it's a lot of the effects of capitalism and stuff. People making money off of death, and trying to sell us death, and I don't know. I just feel like it's death, as you see in nature. Death feeds life. When the tree falls to the floor of the forest and starts to decay, mushrooms grow off that tree, and bugs eat that tree, and things build homes in that dead tree. It's like, so I feel like we're no different than that. Our death just is another beginning,
which is such a great way of looking at it. And I imagine something that it takes time and exploring to try and actually get to that mindset.
Yeah, I've tried to do a lot of work. I've tried to do a lot of work on myself, and a lot of therapy and meditation and retreats and different experiences to, I don't know, have had some death experiences, and I don't know, just glimpses into what I think death may be like, or I don't know, just try. And that just really, at the end of the day, just tries to make me be more present, just in this life, because it's like, I think when you have things taken away from you, they're like mini deaths, because you're like, okay, this is what it feels like to not have this thing. And death is what it's going to feel like to not have this body called Jim anymore, but I feel like there will be a continuance. I don't know what that is or what that means, but I really feel like there is, in this way, we're all unified, and we're all on this energetic voyage together, all living beings. So I think that's another thing we have to be reminded of, is that we're all connected. I feel like we are, and we have to learn the things that we have to learn while we're in our body named Rod Yates, or our body named Jim, or whatever it is. It's not that that's not important, but it's just a small part of the whole thing.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier, or you were talking earlier, about touring and how, I guess you risked the idea of burning out with your schedule. Do you remember your first ever tour? And not necessarily as My Morning Jacket, but the first time that you hit the road with any outfit?
Yeah, the first time, so I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and for a long time before My Morning Jacket, I was in a band called Month of Sundays.
Yeah.
And we, mostly just played around Kentucky, and then around the same time, towards the end of that, I started doing My Morning Jacket stuff, and My Morning Jacket was the first thing that kind of got invites to play elsewhere, and we would just do like a little things here and there. We'd go to Chicago or go to Cincinnati, or places that weren't too far from Louisville. But then, strangely, the first place that ever wanted anything that I was involved with to tour was in Holland and Belgium.
Really?
They really loved the Tennessee Fire, our first My Morning Jacket record. So we went and toured like literally everywhere you could possibly tour within just Holland and Belgium, which was incredible. It was so beautiful and so amazing, and that kind of started a chain reaction back home, because nobody gave a shit about us back home. But then they were like, "What? They're going over to Holland and Belgium? They're like doing insanely well in Holland and Belgium." They're like, "I guess we should try and give them a shot or whatever." It was pretty funny.
What was that? Was that your first time overseas?
Yes. Yep.
Wow. What did you learn from that? Was it a complete culture shock?
Oh my God, it was just insane. Yeah, it was so beautiful, because it was like, I had literally, I'd never been on an airplane before. We got on an airplane to fly to Amsterdam.
Wow.
It's like, and it was insane, because we just had no idea. We just had no concept at all, of playing for like more than like 20 people. That was like the most people we've ever played for. And it was hard to try and understand it all.
But at the same time as you're trying to understand it all, you're also trying to presumably tour manage the group and make sure you get from A to B, and that all the things are taken care of to keep a band on the road. That must in itself have been a big learning curve.
It is. That being on the road is really not an easy way to live. It's like it's really. But I think when you're a younger person, I was only 20 or whatever when all that started happening. So a lot of that stuff also was just real fun. You're just living the rock and roll dream. You don't care if you're sleeping on the floor of the van. Mm-hmm. You don't care that there's nobody there, or that, or there's tons of people there, or whatever. It's like you're stuffing $50 into your pillowcase, because that's all you made, and you got to get gas the next day or whatever. It's just like it's just you're so happy. I mean, we were always just so happy to even be able to do anything that we were just thrilled. We were like, we don't have to go work at the coffee shop tomorrow. Oh my God, amazing! That was our barometer of success. If we could just not have to work at our jobs that we didn't like, we were like stoked.
Nice. So when you're growing up in Louisville, who are your role models in terms of performance? Like, are you watching videos on MTV, or are you? How do you even know how bands perform, and who are you looking at as someone to go, oh, I want to do that?
Well, yeah, that was an interesting era because, when I grew up, the internet still wasn't around. I mean, it had been invented or whatever, but we did, the internet still wasn't part of our lives. But, the first thing that I really was inspired by was the Muppet Show and Jim Henson and the way that all that stuff worked. And then really one of the first bands that struck me was REM, because when I was, 8th grade, 7th grade, Out of Time by REM came out. And up until then, I really loved, because hair metal was really huge at that point, heavy metal and stuff. And I loved heavy metal as a kid, but I always felt kind of ostracized from it because I was definitely like not cool looking, and I didn't have leather pants, and I didn't, I wasn't like, I didn't look like a heavy metal guy. And that was kind of all they were showing you on MTV and stuff that was successful, and then, REM came along. And I was like, oh my God, like, okay, here's these people that are just kind of normal looking people, playing this beautiful music. And then, shortly after then, the whole grunge thing was happening as well, and seeing Nirvana had a similar effect. And I feel like those two bands really kind of combined to form the core of like what I saw as being possible of like, as far as rock and roll music having these two wonderful sides of being really gentle and really soft and acoustic or lush, or being really, really distorted and really, really filled with all this energy and emotion. And I really loved how Nirvana and REM really turned you on to their influences too, and you really started to hear about these older groups from the past that you wouldn't have heard of if they weren't talking about them or whatever. So I feel like those two bands were really the gateway for me.
And does that tie in with the time? Because I think you got your first guitar in 8th grade. Is it around about that time?
Yep. That was right around the time. Yeah, because I had to. It was funny. My uncle owned a business forms place, and not we didn't have any money or anything, and he loaned me money to get my first guitar, but I had to rip like hundreds of boxes of business forms like to pay him back. Like they had like, you remember when printers used to have the dots on the side of the paper? Yeah. So I basically had to like sit there and rip the dots off of like all like hundreds and hundreds of boxes of paper. It was so fucking funny. But it was amazing though, because it really like set up the system of like I wasn't just given the guitar.
Right.
Like it was like he's like, I'll help you get the guitar. And my dad did a really similar thing with the amp, because then I didn't have an amp. And my dad's like, okay, like here's, $100 to get this crappy amp or whatever, but you have to mow the grass to pay it off or whatever, and I really, really am so glad that I had those opportunities, because I feel like that's it really like, I don't know, made me feel the value of those things.
After the break, Jim talks about the early days of My Morning Jacket and what he learned from heroes like John Prine and Roger Waters. Welcome back to Humans of Music and my interview with Jim James. Jim was raised in Louisville by his electrician father and artist mother, and he and his mum would spend a lot of time listening to AM radio together, where he was exposed to artists from all different genres. It's one of the reasons why when he formed My Morning Jacket, he wanted to meld together as many different genres as possible. But there was also a book called The Story of Ferdinand that was a really pivotal influence on him as a kid. It's about a bull that would rather sniff flowers than fight in bullfights, and is a metaphor for following your heart and staying true to yourself. We pick up the conversation with Jim talking about the impact of that book.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. That book is so beautiful and so wonderful, and I feel like that was something also that really, Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog did such a great job of that too, of telling kids to follow their hearts, and I feel like that's something that we as adults really, really need to take the big responsibility of telling that to kids, telling kids to follow their hearts, listen to who they are. Don't take other people's definitions for who you are, listen to who you are. Cause I remember being a kid, I got those messages from Kermit or from Ferdinand or whatever, but then the world told me differently all the time. The world told me I was not okay as I was, and the things I wanted to do were not okay, and I would fail, and I shouldn't do them. And, you're crazy if you want to be a musician. You're crazy if you think you can be an artist, and, all this stuff, the world tries to beat it out of you. But luckily I had a teacher in high school that really encouraged my creativity, and that meant everything to me, and that kind of changed my no into a yes, and kind of helped me believe in myself enough to just listen to my heart. I mean, I feel like it's really that simple. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we're all the same. Nobody's any better than anybody else, and we have these voices that they hear, that we're, our conscience or our spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call it. And the fact that the world tells us not to listen to that is just insane. It's really truly maddening, and so I feel like we really have a huge responsibility to the kids in our lives to tell them they're, like Mr. Rogers said, they're wonderful just the way they are,
Right.
and they need to listen to themselves and be who they are, whether it's artistically or especially in regards to gender identity and sexuality and all those kind of things that, we really need to help people feel comfortable loving themselves for who they are.
Absolutely. And there's a song on the new record called Complex, which I think vaguely asks the question, what am I missing here? And you just sort of spoke about that idea of being told no when you were growing up. You're crazy to want to be a musician. You don't fit in. Is that something that you are addressing in that song? That search to try and understand what am I missing here that is preventing me from fitting in?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I've always just, I've just had a really hard time on this planet, this go around. And, I just have not felt like I fit in. And, I'm not alone in that. I mean, I know a lot of people feel that way, and it's like, and at times it all feels so complex. And I feel like I'm just like, I look at the state of the world, especially where we've come to, and all the hatred and all the violence and all the political hoodwinking, and the whole game of politics has just turned into this big crazy mess of capitalistic bullshit and just people wanting to make money off other people, and it's just like this whole mess. And I look at it all and I'm like, really, like this is where we've come to, as these beings that we're capable of total peace. We're capable of total love. Like this could be heaven on earth for every living being right now. It's totally possible. It's 100% possible for every being, not just humans, but for every being on earth to be in harmony and have a wonderful life. But because of greed, that we keep missing that opportunity. And so, yeah, a lot of times I really don't get it. And I'm like, what has gone wrong and how do we get it right? And it seems to me, it's like, it just keeps coming back to this greed thing, because the greed, it's like they want us divided. It's like when people are arguing with each other on social media, or there's all this division and there's all this left versus right and all this stuff. It's like I want people to wake up and see that this fighting is only playing into the hands of the 1% that are running the show and making money off us all, and the greed of it all that's destroying the planet. And it's just like I wish there was some way to get into the hearts of those few that do own it all and show them what a terrible mistake they're making, and somehow even things out for people. But and obviously at the same time we all have to be doing that in our own lives. But it is really, really twisted.
Yeah,
how the world is divided up right now.
I wanted to just talk to you briefly about those early days of My Morning Jacket. You mentioned those tours to Holland and Belgium, because I understand that, and you alluded to this yourself, that when you started in Louisville, the audiences weren't overly receptive, and so you would find yourselves playing in parties or people's lofts or pizza restaurants on occasions. What is the most memorable of those early shows that sticks out to you, where you just had to find somewhere to play?
Oh God, I mean, I'm trying. God, I mean, we would play really anywhere. It's like when I look back on it all, it's all like it's all really sweet and it's really memorable, because I just feel so blessed to have had the handful of friends and band members that I had that were willing to go do it with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because you can't do it alone, and I just feel so blessed that like there was a handful of people that were like, yeah, let's get in the van, let's do it, let's go make the world a better place through this rock and roll, through this feeling, and it's like and that's something that I didn't even know how to put into words really. I mean, I still don't have all the words for it, but it's like the feeling of sharing music with people is truly healing and truly transportive and truly transcendental. It's like I went 2 nights ago to see the Rolling Stones, the fucking Rolling Stones, in 2021, like standing there, and I'm standing there watching the Rolling Stones, and, it's like for a couple, first couple songs I was enjoying it or whatever, but I was kind of still in my head or whatever. But then before I know it, I'm sucked into the vortex of healing, and I'm transcending. I'm gone. I've left my body. I'm in the music. I'm dancing. I'm losing my mind. And at one point, Keith kind of walks up to the mic and he's like, I forget exactly what he said, but he's like, you forget until you've been away from this for a while, you forget how important this all is, and he kind of like said that to us in the crowd, and I just realized that just the exchange, whether you're in the crowd or on the stage, it's kind of all the same in a way, because there's this exchange of music that's happening, and just the way that it lifts you is so incredible. And to be a kid trying to do that, trying to create a band, and God, creating a band is so hard. And, there's always like all these problems and all these dramas, and somebody won't come up. Somebody won't show up to practice, or somebody gets too high and can't play the show, or somebody, there's just like all these things that like happen. And for it to keep being able to happen and have people be dedicated enough to keep showing up, to even get a band off the ground, is kind of a miracle in itself. But then to have it keep going, and then to have people want to see you and keep showing up and keep being part of this exchange of energy that's so healing, it's just all such a miracle, and it's like the it really hit me the other night at the Stones concert. I was just like, because I didn't know, none of us knew. I was like, I said to myself somewhere in the darkest part of the pandemic, I was like, if the Rolling Stones live through this pandemic, and if I live through this pandemic and I get to see the Rolling Stones, it's just going to be one of those major life moments,
Really?
And I had it the other night. Yeah. Cause it's just like, cause obviously we're still in the pandemic or whatever.
Sure.
It's not like it's over, but there've been so many waves to it and phases of it. And I just kind of like had to pinch myself the other night standing there watching them, that of all that I was grateful for in my life and all that just music in general had brought to my life.
I mean, there must be incredibly poignant shows at the moment as well, obviously, without Charlie at the back.
Oh God, yeah, it was. They showed films of Charlie at the beginning, before the show. And, it was just like really, really emotional, because you really realize that the Stones, have been just part of the fabric of our lives for so long, and it's like I feel like their musical contribution is one of the great pillars, like Beethoven or any other great pillars, and until there are no more humans, and even after that, the Rolling Stones music will be loved, and to think of getting to see them in person, especially in a pandemic, what they're all, it's just, and after Charlie's died, and you could really see that in them all. You could see the gratitude, you could see the love in their faces, and you could see the defiance of age, where they were like, you are not going to tell me, they said, you're not going to let these rules that society says when you're old, you're lame, or when you're old, you shouldn't do anything, or you're not beautiful, or you shouldn't dance. They're saying fuck you to all that in the most beautiful way, where it's like, they're like, you're going to have to pry this guitar out of my cold, dead hands. Or it's like, or Mick Jagger's dancing around so beautiful, like a ballerina, like a ballet dancer.
Yep.
He's dancing around, and he is so beautiful and so powerful. And you're just watching the whole thing. And it really is just so inspiring to all of us, to live our dreams fully, and not let anybody or the notion of age tell us that we can't.
We were talking earlier about making your first couple of records and the fact that it was just the five of you in the studio. And then when it comes to It Still Moves in the early 2000s, the labels start knocking, or they start knocking prior to recording that record. Was that a confusing time for you? How do you help was there anyone that could help you navigate that idea of labels coming to you? Because being a kid of the 90s, growing up, major labels were kind of the devil. It was independent. And did you have this flowing around in your head when you started to get on the radar of record labels?
Oh God. It was insane. We were, in so many ways, I just felt really lucky, cause we had a manager at the time that was super out of his mind about us, and super just trying to make all these things happen for us. And really, without him, Mike Martinovich is his name, we would have never made it. Because we were all super shy and super, we love playing concerts and making records and stuff. But, I hate, I wasn't going to go tell people to go, do this. But he was just like a rabid dog, trying to get every label to find out about us, and and he helped us find a booking agent, and helped us find a lawyer and an accountant and stuff. So he kind of really helped us set up this infrastructure so that we wouldn't get fucked. And so we wouldn't be another major label horror story, and to him, I'm eternally grateful for that, because we took a bunch of meetings with a bunch of labels and talked to a bunch of people, because I feel like the answer is always somewhere in the middle, right? And so we were lucky enough to do our first deal with ATO, who we're still with, but they were kind of in a deal with RCA at the time. Mm-hmm. So we were like, oh, this is kind of best of both worlds. There's like a major label that can hopefully get the music out, but then there's this indie side, so we can feel like we've got a really personal connection and, not get lost in the machinery. But, things within major labels are crazy. And after a while, we feel like we were getting lost in the machinery. And luckily, ATO was able to bring us with them, and they got out of the deal, and we came with them. And ever since, it's just been one of the most divine blessings being able to be with ATO, because I feel like they've grown into such a wonderful, diverse, amazing label. And it's been amazing to grow with them on our own. And they've been what I always hoped that I could find. Just they've never second guessed us. They've never tried to pressure us into doing something to fit with a trend, or to fit with, trying to get a hit single, or, any of those horror stories that you hear. I just, I couldn't feel more grateful to have encountered that. But we really were lucky to have Mike at the time as our manager to kind of guide us through the thing, and take the meetings and talk to the, and just like we still have the, same lawyer that Mike helped us find, and still the same a
Right.
booking agent, and same accountant. Just like really, really great people
Yeah.
that really helped us steer clear of some of those horror stories that you hear.
Yeah. Mike, obviously very pivotal to you, and someone who no doubt gave you lots of advice and lots of career guidance. Are there other people in your life such as that who have given you great advice that have really helped you in your career?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, I feel like there's, gosh, I mean, I really feel like it's almost not even so much of verbal advice or really even moments, but just being so lucky to have been around so many people that I respect and admire, and see them in action. See somebody like John Prine,
Mm.
to really get to see one of your heroes be a good person, and be a normal, down to earth person, just so much impacts onto me of like what I want to be, and I think growing up in Louisville, it was really hard because there was a lot of snobbery, and there's a lot of elitism in the musical scene, and there was a lot of people could be very mean and very cold and very egotistical, and that was something that I never wanted to be, and I always wanted to make people feel welcome and feel loved, and let people know that we were glad that they were at our shows, and that it wasn't some popularity contest or whatever. But as you go through the industry, whether you're dealing with whatever people on different levels, sometimes you see people on these massive levels or whatever that are just out of their minds, consumed by their ego and consumed by the whole, the crazy veil of it all, that the fame matters, or the fucking stats matter, or the awards matter, or any of that bullshit matters, and I feel like somebody like John Prine, you really get to see what it's all about. What you believe it's about is confirmed through one of your heroes, that what I believe is true, that it really is just about the music, and it really is just about trying to be a good person, and trying to be just like a source of joy on the planet, and everything else is all the rest of the shit that they tell you about it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you've had the opportunity to work with some of your musical heroes. I'm thinking of someone like Roger Waters, who you backed. You were the backing band at the 2015 Newport Folk Festival. And I think obviously you had some rehearsal time with Roger as well. What do you see of someone of that level? What do you just observe about who they are and how they've carried themselves to get to that level that they are?
Oh God! I mean, like somebody like Roger. I mean, again, one of the major pillars of our musical foundations. And getting to be next to somebody like him, you're really like seeing. I mean, just like the brilliance of what he has created. It's like, yeah, it's almost too big to understand. It's interesting working with somebody like him. Because he's super super detail oriented, and I wouldn't say I'm not detail oriented, but it's like, it's just interesting as you work with these people and you see like how different you are from them, and what similarities you share, and yeah, just like trying to understand, like, like what is it about how this guy works that has made his music so meaningful to so many people, and so enduring, and will stand the test of time, and all of this stuff. And I mean, I think a lot of it is beyond human comprehension. I think a lot of it is divine, is who knows where the music comes from at the end of the day. But yeah, I don't. It's I feel so lucky to have been able to have been around so many people like that I admire so much.
Sure. Well, I mean, did you take anything from that experience with Roger that you then applied to how you operate?
I mean, I know I did. It's like some of the stuff's so hard to verbalize.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like the I don't. It's like, it's just really interesting, because a lot of things, it's like, I'm trying to think of a way to say it. It's like, I really like to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a, I guess, loose and messy kind of style, where it's like, if I'm going to have a good time, I'd rather it I don't care if it's a little loose and messy.
Yeah.
Or a little out of tune, as long as everybody had a good time. But like Roger is like super detail oriented, like super like let's dig into the third particle of the third word of the third verse, how we're singing that particular harmony. Let's zoom in there. Are we doing this or are we doing that? Like that kind of like super specific technical kind of things where it's like, you step back from one of his compositions or whatever, and you see the those things that I guess in myself I don't think I'm capable of,
Right.
of giving that much. And I'm not saying one's better or one's worse or whatever, but you have these moments of like I never thought I'd get to sit there and fucking try and sing Mother with Roger Waters. It's like I never in my wildest dreams did think we'd have this moment. And then we're having this moment. And I'm kind of like, I guess I'm more on the Rolling Stones end of it or whatever, where I'm like, let's just fucking play it and have a good time. But he's more like, let's super zoom in to the third word of the third line of the chorus of Mother, and let's change the harmony slightly so that it's like, doing this slightly different thing, and it's like, you're just like, whoa, wow, like just like on this like microscopic, like atomic level with these songs, where it's like, it's just wild.
Right.
Because within a song like Mother, you on the surface, what a simple song, G and C or G and D or whatever, it's like one of the easiest songs to play on acoustic guitar. But when you zoom in to like what must have gone into that recording or what must have gone on in his mind on those subatomic levels, to make it the recording that it is, that we all love, that will stand the test of time forever.
Yeah.
It's so wild to see that. And then on the flip side, see somebody like Neil Young or the Rolling Stones or whatever, which I feel like I kind of fall more into that camp of like 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, 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 bang. Okay, that was fun. Shit, that was awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, bang, bang. That's kind of like more where I get my fun from.
Sure.
So it's really, really interesting to see somebody with a mind like Roger Waters like get so zoomed in on things.
Absolutely. Jim, we're almost out of time. The very last thing I wanted to ask you is that Jaxsta is all about giving credit where credit is due. You've mentioned a few people who are special to you in this interview, but are there other people that you would give credit to for helping you get where you are today?
Oh man, I mean, so many people. I just feel like there's like so many. I mean, obviously the band. It's like the people in the band, currently, and all the people that have ever been in the band, and people. I mean, I feel like the band where it is, My Morning Jacket is. There's so many things that that Carl and I share. Technically, and Carl and I are both really into the studio and into recording, and there's so many things. Fans of the band might know who see Carl on stage and might know that he plays saxophone, or know that he plays pedal steel or whatever. But I feel like Carl's such a rainbow of sounds. He can build these. He can stack horn section. He can do entire horn section by himself with the saxophone, or crazy things like that, or just just the people, just the way that we've come to work and understand each other as a band in such a harmonious, really beautiful way after all these years. Really makes it feel like we're only getting started. We're kind of only finding our stride in this really beautiful way. So really everybody in the band, and people that I play with in my solo band, people like Kevin Ratterman, who mixed this most recent Jackin' record and has mixed several live things for us, and I've done a bunch of solo stuff with him. I feel like he's been a really huge inspiration to me, and a really vital part of what I've enjoyed about music. And Dave Given, who plays drums with me and a lot of my solo stuff too. I feel like it's funny because Patrick Hallahan from My Morning Jacket and Dave Given and I have known each other since 4th grade. So we've known each other.
Wow.
over 30 years.
Yeah.
So to have the two of those guys being the two main rhythmic heartbeats of my life, kind of, and having both known them for so long, I feel like is such a blessing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel so grateful to I could go on and on, but
Sure.
yeah.
That was great. Jim, thanks so much for your time. It's been so great to talk to you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And that's it for another episode of Humans of Music. A big thanks to Jim for his time, and thank you for listening. If you have any feedback on the show or suggestions on who you'd like me to interview, or even if you just want to say hello, please drop me a line at humansofmusic@jaxsta.com. That's humansofmusic, one word, at Jaxsta, JAXSTA.com. This episode was mixed by Lachlan Mitchell from Parliament Studios in Annandale, and the incidental music and theme song were written and performed by Sam Lockwood. Please remember to subscribe to the Humans of Music podcast so you never miss an episode, or even better, share it amongst your friends and rate and review it. And remember, next time you need to know who wrote a song, who produced a song, who engineered it, who played on it, who sang on it, who did anything on it, head to jaxsta.com for all your official music credit information. Until the next episode of Humans of Music, I'm Rod Yates. Thanks for listening.